All right, so this is Michelle Kern, and we're back again with the mid stage of our Udu here, where we're going to be building up the shoulders and towards the neck, which means that we're going to be tilting the clay more inwards and creating a nice concave shape. Okay, so I have already pre-cut and measured and slipped on these pieces of clay. So let's just fit those into place here. Okay. So the difference with these, so we're going to start to tilt these inward. Okay, so just do that a little bit at first. Make sure we've got enough clay to fit in this space. Sometimes you have to cut the pieces of the strips a little shorter, just because the act of turning them in like this will slightly reduce the length that you need to go around the circumference of the rim there. Okay, so we're going to go and we're going to quickly blend these two things together. Okay. I think I'll do a little of this off stage here, just so we don't take up your time. So let me pause here for a moment. Okay, so we've gone ahead and bent in the previous slab, so it's starting to curve inwards. And the next row we're going to put on there is going to be a steeper pitch still. So before I start slipping pieces of clay on there, I want to place those at the angle that I want to end up with. So it's going to take a little more kind of muscling around and patching in. So we'll do this together. You can see how we fit those in and make this start to curve inwards. Okay. Let's take a look here. Okay. That's pretty good. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so we've got a pretty narrow opening there, just a little over 3 inches now. And that's a definite reduction from where we started, which was more about a 5-inch circumference. Okay, so that's pretty good. Okay, and I will probably bend these, the rim in even a little more to give this more of a rounded look when I slip those on there. So let's go ahead, and I will slip these on video. So you can see that it's not a really mysterious process going on here. Okay. Sometimes people feel like that part is a little intimidating. But as long as you have been sensitive to the timing of your clay drying, you should be able to be pretty, what's a good word? Should be able to get it to do what you want it to do. There's probably a smaller word for that. Should cooperate with you. Okay. Get our scoring tool. Okay. This is like the number one question I get when we do projects like this is, how do I get clay to turn directions? So that's why I'm taking a little time with this, just in case it seems it's a little strange. Okay, we'll take our longer piece first. Place that on there. Okay, we're going to use the same process that we've used before, But instead of holding this up straight up and down and pressing it into the previous rim, I'm going to tilt my hand inside a little bit at an angle. I'm going to carefully press down and also inwards so I get the angle that I want there. Okay. So make sure you use a generous portion of slip there. You will probably have to do a little filling in, making sure you get those two pieces of clay to grip each other. Okay. We'll do our straightening up after I've gotten the other piece in there. Okay, so I'm going to put this one over here, bridge those two pieces together. I'm going to do the same thing. Carefully press those down. Go from one end to the other. Keep your hand tilted inwards. So we've got a little extra here. I don't want to fold those over each other or layer them on top of each other because I don't want a lump there. So I'm going to carefully come in there. Get our light in there better. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off of there. So we've got two edges that will meet. Okay. This is looking pretty good. Okay. 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 So at this point, I'm just going to curve this in a little more, give the whole piece a little more of an egg shape. Okay. Give it a nice transition to the neck and a consistent look on the shoulder here with a nice line. Okay. We're going to blend that down. Okay, my other video, I showed you my new scraper. At first, I'm just going to kind of take this tool, cross hatch that fresh clay down over the previous row so we get a good seal here. Okay, so don't worry about smoothing everything yet. So we're going to do that when the clay is a little more leather hard. Another mistake people make is trying to do a lot of smoothing while their clay is still just leather hard or still pretty wet. And usually that just results in dragging fresh clay across the surface of other clay. And all you're going to get is kind of a texture like that's pretty rough. So doing smoothing when your clay is wet is good to just blend big areas together and flatten down lumps and just get an overall consistent shape. So doing the refining, the polishing, taking off the texture, even paddling it into a different shape, you want to wait until the clay is not quite as flexible. A little further along on leather hard. There isn't really a vocabulary for the different stages of leather hard, but this project is kind of all about exploring each one of them. So don't try to rush this. Okay, so I've cross-hatched those pieces together, and I'm just going to very roughly buff out that seam. So once again, I'm supporting it from the back with my fingers. I'm dragging across the seam. I like to go from top to bottom across here. Okay, kind of at an angle. Okay, we want to make sure that this part is pretty strong. When we put the neck on here, this curve is going to be supporting kind of a taller chimney-like shape of clay. So I want to make sure this isn't weak or prone to cracking. So I'm taking this while it's fresh clay, making sure these two pieces are really welded together. side a little bit. Okay. Good. Okay. Okay, so now we're just going to look at this and see if it's more or less symmetrical. I want to make sure there aren't any dramatically weird flat spots on here. Okay, so I'm taking that around. I feel like this got on here crooked. Okay, so I've kept my little dish on there the whole time. So don't be taking that off until we're closer to the drying stage. Okay. So the more clay we put on here, the more weight's going to be pressing against the bottom. So even though it feels dry on the bottom at some point, the weight of the clay that we've added to the top here can start to make the bottom collapse or flatten. So I'm keeping it in its little dish. And also what I'm doing, since I want to do some decoration that goes all over the surface of this clay, I'm keeping the middle and bottom at the stage of leather hard that I want it to be in. I'm working at the top. I have a long piece of plastic here. I'm keeping it wrapped around the bottom and middle. I'm just letting the top set up to the same stage of leather hard that the lower, middle, and lower parts are at. Okay, so it's a good habit to get into. You'll do this when you're doing larger sculpture, because otherwise if the bottom of your piece becomes bone dry and you're still trying to add clay on top, that can make the whole structure really fragile, because then the bone dry section of the bottom is going to be pretty crumbly and won't want to bear any load, and it's really hard to get wet clay to stick to dry clay. So let's try to keep everything in the same state of leather hard. So we're going to let this top part set up a little bit. Okay. Also, we don't want to let the sides dry because we're going to be cutting a sound hole in this piece. At a certain point, I want the clay to be still soft enough to cut, but not too soft. Okay, so we'll keep that like that. I'm going to let this top part set up a little bit, and then we'll work on the neck. All right, guys. Okay, so we're back, and we are going to put a neck on the shoulders of our Udu. Okay, so now this has had enough time to set up. Still a little flex, but strong enough, should hold up the weight. Okay, I've got a couple of strips all ready to go. I've been saving the scraps from the rest of the build, so I think I need to roll out clay for this project, which is pretty good. Didn't end up using a bunch of clay. Okay. It's about 1/4 of a bag of Solvate, which is pretty good. Okay. Get our slip on there. And on this piece, we're going to turn directions once again. So I'm applying the slip slightly on the inside of the rim here. I'm going to put the next strip inset in the hole there. Get our scoring. Take that and just sit it on inside there a little bit. End up with a little more than we need. That's always okay. Let's straighten those up. Good. So I have one edge here that I didn't notice is a little skinnier than I want it to be. So in order to make this level, I'm going to add a little coil in here. Okay, no rules against that. Just get that more or less level with the other half there. Okay there. Score. These are kind of the reject ends. Strips that I cut off when I was measuring out, or the strips that I used on the body of the Udu. So some of these are just a little remaindered. Okay, get those. There we go. Good. Okay. Let's get our second coil on there. Should be. Good. Ah. Score. Last one on there. That's a little more than we need. Make sure that's upright before I start slicing away. Rotate that around. Take a look at it. I don't really mind that it's kind of rough looking at the moment because I'm going to blend a bunch of it. Good. Needle tool. Okay, knife. Almost there. So you can make the neck of this as long as you want to. You look on YouTube videos about people who make Udus. Sometimes they extend them very high. I like to keep these a little shorter. I don't think it really affects what I want to get out of this. That makes them kind of short. Okay, let's take a little slip here. Just fill in some of the seam work here. Spackling in. I'll let that set up to leather hard. So on the top, you can kind of finish those off the way that you would like to. So I like to put a coil around the top just to give it kind of a nice finished looking rim. I'll do that after I do some smoothing, so I'm not working around that. So I'll take another little break. And I'll let this set up and do some blending. And then we'll come back and put the rim on there. And then we'll talk a little bit about burnishing and texture and decoration. Okay? Alright, thanks for sticking with me so far. We'll pick it up again in the next video.